The bell above the door of Molly's Sweethearts didn't just jingle, it sang, a clear, high, silver note that cut through the warm, fragrant air, announcing arrivals and departures like a tiny culinary angel. For Molly Henderson, now 67, that sound was the heartbeat of her life. It was the first thing she heard every morning at 4:15 a.m. as she pushed open the door into the dark, sleeping shop, and the last thing she heard at 3 p.m. when she flipped the sign to closed and let the profound, flour-dusted silence settle in. The bakery was more than a business. It was a living, breathing extension of her soul. It occupied the ground floor of a narrow, three-story brick building on a cobblestone side street in the town of Cedarbrook. The building was hers, paid for stitch by stitch, cookie by cookie, after her husband, Henry, passed too young 25 years ago. The insurance payout had been meager, the grief immense. The bakery, then a struggling little cake shop called Henderson's Hearth, had been their dream, but Henry's job at the mill was the real income. Left alone with a mountain of doubt and a 10-year-old daughter, Molly had done the only thing she knew. She baked. She baked her sorrow into dense, dark rye loaves. She kneaded her fear into sturdy, reliable sandwich bread. And she whispered her hopes into delicate puff pastry and sugar-fine cakes. She discovered a gift, an alchemist's touch. Her lemon tart wasn't just tart, it was a burst of sunshine that made retirees weep with forgotten joy. Her midnight chocolate sourdough was legendary, a complex, earthy loaf with a crackling crust and a heart as dark and mysterious as the nearby pine forests. And her peach rosemary scone? That was her masterpiece. Flaky, buttery, with nuggets of peach that tasted like summer captured, all lifted by the faint, piney whisper of rosemary. It wasn't a scone, it was a sonnet. Over 2 decades, Molly's Sweethearts became the reason people visited Cedarbrook. Food bloggers made pilgrimages. The town thrived. And Molly, with her kind eyes, strong, flower-creased hands, and a cloud of prematurely white hair always escaping its bun, became a beloved fixture. She raised her daughter, Sarah, in the apartment above the shop. Sarah, however, inherited her father's wanderlust, not her mother's rootedness. At 18, she fled the smothering sweetness of Cedarbrook for the gritty appeal of a city graphic design career. Their relationship was loving but distant, a series of phone calls and biannual visits filled with slightly awkward affection. The hole Sarah left was cavernous. It was Chloe, Molly's niece, who stepped in to fill it. Chloe was the daughter of Molly's estranged brother. She arrived in Cedarbrook at 22, a fledgling pastry school graduate with big dreams and a portfolio full of more style than substance. She was all sharp angles, cheekbones, elbows, ambition, where Molly was soft curves. Her hair was a chic dark bob, her clothes all black and minimalist, a stark contrast to Molly's floral aprons. "Aunt Molly," she said, her eyes wide with what looked like awe. "What you've built here, it's art. I just want to learn from the master." Molly's heart, so tender from missing Sarah, swelled. Here was family showing an interest in her life's work. She took Chloe in without a second thought, gave her the spare room upstairs, taught her the rhythms of the bakery, the precise temperature of the butter for the croissants, the exact sound of the starter when it was hungry, the secret pinch of cardamom in the apple filling that made it sing. For a few years it was idyllic. Chloe was an eager, if sometimes impatient, apprentice. She brought in new ideas, a matcha latte on the menu, a deconstructed berry tart that looked like modern art. Molly indulged her, letting her experiment on weekends, keeping the core legacy recipes sacrosanct during the week. The townsfolk adored Chloe. She was young, pretty, and called them darlings. Molly felt a surge of pride. This was her legacy, her family carrying forward. The first tremor was subtle. Chloe began suggesting efficiencies. "Aunt Molly, we're spending a fortune on this single-origin vanilla from Madagascar. I found a supplier with a blend that's 70% cheaper, and in a blind tasting, no one could tell the difference." Molly, elbow deep in brioche dough, frowned. Chloe, love, we can tell. I can tell. The custard will taste flat, like perfume instead of flowers. But the margin, Auntie, think of the margin. We could invest in new equipment. The word we felt nice. Molly, who had balanced the books in a tattered ledger with a pencil for decades, began to feel old-fashioned. Chloe was of the digital age. She talked about brand scaling and social media engagement. She set up an Instagram for the bakery, taking stunning, moody photos of the pastries. The follower count soared. Orders increased. Molly was grateful. Then, 5 years after Chloe's arrival, the second tremor. Molly's hands began to betray her. It started with a slight, occasional tremor in her right hand, a quiver when she was piping a delicate rosette or writing "Happy Birthday" in script. She hid it, blaming it on too much caffeine, a long day, but it grew persistent. A neurologist in the city confirmed it. Early onset Parkinson's disease, a slow-moving, incurable terror of fine motor control. Molly was devastated. Baking was her language, her hands her voice. The doctor was gentle but firm. Stress exacerbates the symptoms. You need to slow down, Molly. Delegate. Chloe was her rock. "Don't you worry about anything," she said, wrapping her thin but strong arms around her. "I'm here. I'll handle everything. You just need to rest and focus on your health. The bakery is our dream now. Let me carry it for a while." The transition was slow, insidious, and cloaked in the language of love and concern. First, Chloe took over the ordering. "You hate dealing with the suppliers, Auntie. Let me handle the stress." Then the bookkeeping. "That ledger gives you a headache. I've got this amazing software. It's all in the cloud." Molly, intimidated by the technology and fatigued by the disease, acquiesced. Chloe set up a new business bank account for operational efficiency. Molly's name was on it, but Chloe had the debit card and online access. Chloe started hiring 2 young bakers from the city, disciples of her modern aesthetic. They were skilled, but looked at Molly's traditional methods, the hand whisking, the dough felt for readiness rather than timed, with polite bemusement. Molly's shifts grew shorter. Chloe insisted she take naps, go for gentle walks. "Preserve your strength, Auntie. We need your creative mind, not your tired hands." The menu began to change. The midnight chocolate sourdough was now just dark chocolate loaf, made with a commercial cocoa powder, instead of the rare, stone-ground chocolate Molly sourced. The peach rosemary scone remained, but Chloe started adding white chocolate chips to it. "It needs visual pop for the Instagram, Auntie. People eat with their eyes first." Molly protested, but her voice felt faint, a whisper against the gale of Chloe's confident momentum. The townsfolk noticed. Old Mrs. Gable asked timidly one day, "Molly, dear, the lemon tart, it tastes different, sharper somehow." Chloe swooped in before Molly could answer. "That's because we're using Meyer lemons now, Mrs. Gable, a more sophisticated palate. Isn't it fabulous?" Molly saw the doubt in Mrs. Gable's eyes, but the old woman just nodded, unwilling to cause a fuss. The final, chilling step was the legal one. Chloe brought home some papers one evening. "Just some boring administrative stuff, Auntie. The lawyer says since I'm essentially running the place now, and with your health situation, we should make it official. A medical power of attorney, just in case you ever can't make decisions for yourself. And a general power of attorney so I can sign checks and pay bills if you're having a bad day. It's just a safety net, for both of us." Molly's hands shook as she looked at the dense legality. The tremor was bad that day. The words swam. She trusted Chloe. This was her girl, the one who'd filled the silence Sarah left. She signed on the dotted lines, her signature wobblier than it had ever been. "Perfect," Chloe said, kissing her forehead. "Now you can really relax." A week later, on a Tuesday, the one day the bakery was closed, Molly came downstairs at her usual time, out of habit. She wanted to check on her starter, to feel the familiar sourdough scent in the pre-dawn dark. The key didn't turn. Puzzled, she jiggled it. The lock had been changed. A brand new, shiny deadbolt stared back at her. Her heart pounding a sick rhythm, she went around to the alley entrance. Same thing. As she stood there, confused and cold, the postman arrived. He handed her a single envelope marked Urgent Legal Documents. Inside, a letter from a law firm she'd never heard of, in the city. It stated that as of the previous Friday, the business assets of Molly's Sweethearts, including all recipes, trade name, customer lists, and equipment, had been legally transferred to a new limited liability company, CB Artisan Boulanger LLC. The sole managing member and owner was Chloe Elizabeth Renard. The transfer, the letter noted, was authorized under the general power of attorney granted by Mrs. Molly Henderson. Attached was a typed note on crisp, expensive stationery. Aunt Molly, the world of food has evolved. Sweethearts is a tired brand for a bygone era.